it, you brats!
Stop it, you brats!
These two raccoons have never heard of privacy, or just how to simply leave me alone, forever. Rebecca and Hallie were 7 and 5. I'm 10, so I'm the adult here, right? That morning, I was blissfully sunbathing near the pool when these two horrible girls drenched me with their stupid super soakers. I wish my parents would just put them up for adoption, or just forget them at school one day or something. The only good thing about living with them was that we didn't have to share a room. My parents were rich and we lived in a really nice house. We had our own rooms, and when I turned 10, I was finally allowed to lock my door. So for a few hours a day, I could cut them all out completely. Keep watching to see how my grandpa changed my life and how I got rid of these brats for a long time. So yes, my grandpa, my dad's dad. He owned one of the most popular vineyards and invested his money in other things too. I guess my dad sort of learned from him, and that's how he became rich. But my grandpa was richer. He lived in the biggest house I'd ever seen in my life. It was bigger than a mega mall, and definitely more luxurious. Not only was this house big, the surroundings were massive too. He even had a maze in his garden, and one time I almost got lost in there and I couldn't find my way out. I felt so proud to be his granddaughter, and I could brag to everyone that this was my grandpa's house. But one day, one very sad thing happened. My grandpa decided to go skydiving and, well, let's just say he never came back. My dad was called to the reading of his will, and when he came back home, he looked confused. He called us all to a family meeting.
Well, as you know, my dad had a huge fortune. All of us will inherit some of it, but it seems that Kimi was his favorite.
What do you mean, Dad?
Well, he left his house to you.
What do you mean?
Now you're the owner of his mansion.
What? The whole thing?
Yes, dear.
My mom and annoying sisters stared in disbelief. Wow, I was now the owner of a mansion. Well, Dad, I think it's about time I had more independence. When can I move in?
Young lady, you always make me laugh. You can move in when you're 18.
No, come on.
Well, maybe you should just let her do what she wants. Maybe she can try to live there for a week, and if she likes it, she can stay a little longer. Besides, there are over 30 members of staff working there. They can keep an eye on her.
Wow, Mom, you're so smart. Dad, did you hear that? So I can move out, right?
Fine, Kimi.
Can we come? Yeah, we're coming.
No. I went straight to my room, packed a bag of my favorite things, and asked my dad to drive me to my grandpa's house.
Already?
Yeah.
No, we'll leave tomorrow morning.
I nearly threw a tantrum, but I went back to my room and I locked the door. The next day, we arrived at my grandpa's, well, my mansion. The butler was already waiting for me at the door.
Good day, Miss Kimi. You have 45 different bedrooms to choose from. I'm sure you'll pick the perfect one.
Hello, Gregory. Well, I can just sleep in a different one each night until I make up my mind. Could you ask the cooks to make lots of pizza for lunch? Thanks. I waltzed up to the huge staircase and danced through the hallways, opening up every single room in the building. All the bedrooms were huge, but in addition to those, there was a games room, bowling room, a huge home theater, a sauna, a gym, and a library. My dad stayed to talk to the staff for a while and then he left. They wondered why he was so comfortable leaving me alone, but he explained to them that I was different and that I had to have everything done my way. Yes! Liberation from my two stupid, horrible, annoying raccoon sisters. You know what sucked though? I still had to go to school. The next day, Gregory woke me up when it was time and then he brought me a wonderful breakfast in bed. After that, Lola, my new assistant, came to help me choose an outfit for school. Then the driver, Peter, drove me to school in one of my late grandpa's expensive cars. I don't know much about cars, but I do know that everything he drove cost a lot. On the way to school, I got a bright idea. Why don't I use my new fortune to my advantage? I can become the most popular girl at school if people knew this is my house. Hey Peter, can we stop at the printing shop real quick? I need to do something before school.
Sure, dear.
I printed 200 invitations to my housewarming pool party the next weekend, and when I got to school, I gave one to almost everyone I saw. I became an instant sensation, and with the help of my 30 employees, my party was a blast. I didn't even allow my family to come. I obviously couldn't have my little sisters ruining everything, if you know what I'm saying. For the next month or so, my social life at school improved a lot. Everyone wanted to hang out with me or come to my mansion to chill out. My parents would come to check on me every once in a while, but when they realized I was doing just fine on my own, they stopped behaving like helicopter parents. So that's it. All's well that ends well, and the story is over. Yay! No. Things just started to get weird in that house. And when I say weird, I mean really weird. I have a really good memory and I always remember where I put stuff. But one day, my things just started go missing. For example, I'd put my backpack down on the table, turn my head, and when I turned back, it would be gone. This happened with so many things: my shoes, my computer, my tennis rackets. I started to think I was losing my mind, but that couldn't be it. Maybe someone was playing a trick on me. Then I started to hear noises in the night. Now, although I'm 10, I'm not a scaredy cat, okay? I never believed in ghosts or monsters or aliens or any of that stuff. But every night, I started waking up to a very startling noise. Once there was the sound of a wolf howling. Then another night, I heard a baby crying loudly. I looked everywhere for the baby, but it was nowhere to be found. Then one night, I heard some weird beeping noises. It was awful. I started to watch the staff suspiciously because I wondered if they were up to something. First, I followed Gregory around, but I made sure that he had no idea I was behind him. But he just continued his boring butler life and did nothing particularly interesting. So I changed my target. I decided to follow Lola. After she picked my outfit for school one day, I pretended to go to school, but I told the driver I was staying home, and I snuck back inside. First, Lola seemed to be quite ordinary. She watched TV for a while and then played a game on her phone. But then, I saw her go into the kitchen when no one was looking. She opened the fridge and pulled out a huge container of something. She opened it, pushed her hand inside, and put something big and black in her mouth. I looked closer and then nearly fainted because I was so shocked. It was a bat! She ate it all up, closed the container, and put it back in the fridge. I watched her walk away, then went to the fridge to check for myself. I opened the fridge, then the container, and I saw a whole bunch of bats in there. Why were there bats in my fridge? Why was Lola eating them? This made absolutely no sense. Was I in a dream? Was I losing my mind? I ran around the house looking for Gregory to tell him what I saw, but when I finally found him, he was in the home theater sitting seriously looking at a purple screen. It was almost like he was in a trance. In fact, his eyes even turned green. You probably think I ran straight out of that house to stay with my parents, but I just went to my room and fell asleep. I was convinced that something was wrong with me, and there was no way I was going to go anywhere near my annoying little sisters. Anything was better than that. I thought that if I just had a nap, I'd wake up and everything would be normal again. Do you think it was? It wasn't. I woke up later and decided to go sit by the pool to clear my head a bit. But guess what? The pool wasn't there. How exactly does an entire pool disappear? I have no idea. I ran inside to scream to anyone who would listen. Gregory, where is the pool?
Pool? We never had a pool here.
Yes, we did. I invited all of my friends over here, remember? We had a pool party. How does a pool disappear?
Are you okay, Miss Kimmy?
Am I okay? You're all totally nuts here. I went back to my room and started crying. These people were crazy, and something was definitely wrong with this house. I knew I had to leave, and I had to leave quick. I was so consumed with my thoughts that I fell asleep until the next day. I knew it was the next day because the sun was shining directly onto my face. I looked out my window and gasped. The pool was back, like it had never left. Gregory? I screamed.
Yes, Miss Kimmy?
He said as he rushed to my door. You said that we never had a pool here.
I said what? Are you okay?
You're all crazy and you're playing games with my head.
No, we're not. I don't know what you're talking about. We've always had a pool.
And did you know that Lola eats bats? Do you catch them for her?
What are you talking about?
I want to go home right now.
But you are home.
To my parents' house.
Okay, fine. I'll get the driver to take you there right now.
He looked really confused and sort of like I'd hurt his feelings. Don't give me that look. You're all liars. As soon as I leave, you're all fired. Get out of my mansion and never come back. Peter took me home and my sisters had just left for school. My mom and dad were alone in the living room.
What are you doing here, Kimmy?
Something is wrong with that house. And something is wrong with everyone who works there. Well, maybe not Peter. I'm not sure. But everyone else has a problem. Lola eats bats. There are strange noises in the night. Things go missing. The pool disappeared. I don't want to go back there.
Wow, honey, are you okay? Have you been eating properly? Maybe this is what happens when you have pizza for lunch every day. You sorta begin to lose your mind.
I'm fine. Why don't you go and see for yourself? Go there right now and you'll realize I'm telling the truth.
Okay, maybe we will. We'll hire a sitter for you and your sisters, and we'll go investigate.
My dad said while winking. After my sisters got back from school and the sitter came over, my parents left in their car. The sitter made us some dinner, then I went straight to my old bedroom and locked the door because I wasn't about to socialize with Hallie and Rebecca. I played a few games on my laptop and spoke to a few of my friends online. At about midnight, my sitter knocked on my door.
Hey, when did your parents say they were coming back? It's already midnight and I can't stay here much longer.
Wow. They should have been back by now. Maybe something happened to them.
I tried calling them, but no one's picking up.
Oh no, call the cops. Maybe something happened to them. The sitter thought I was exaggerating, but I felt like something was definitely wrong. I called them and gave them the address. The sitter drove me and my sisters to the mansion. When we got there, 2 cops were there, but I didn't see my parents' car anywhere.
No, officer. No one came here. I haven't seen a couple. I'm sorry.
He's right. You can check our security cameras. We've had no visitors.
The officers seemed to be convinced, but Gregory and Lola had an evil glare in their eyes. It has now been 3 whole months, and there have been no sign of my parents. Right now, my sisters and I live with our aunt in the country house. I still don't understand what happened to me in that house, or what could have possibly happened to my parents, but I wish that everything would go back to normal. Want a part 2? Then get this video to 30,000 likes.
I walked into the bedroom and instantly sensed that I wasn't alone. Someone was in my bed. I flicked the light switch on and got the shock of my life. Adam was sitting in my bed.
Hello, sweetheart.
I know that you want to hear more, but first, make sure that you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell too. So, my husband was alive. He came back to life. I should have been happy, right? I should have been jumping for joy out of my mind with relief, right? Well, I wasn't. I was sad. I was sad and disappointed. You see, I haven't been completely honest with you. You've probably read the title of this video and realized the truth. I tried to murder my millionaire husband. This is what actually happened. I hired someone to kill my husband. I knew there was no way I could do it myself. So I did some research and eventually I found someone who was willing to do it for me. Of course, they wanted a lot of money to do it, but that wasn't a problem. The night of the murder, I told Adam that I had to go out to do some shopping. All the time I was out, I couldn't stop thinking that Adam was about to be killed. As I drove up to the house, I saw that all the lights were off. That was a good sign. If Adam had survived, the whole house would have been lit up. I opened the kitchen door and immediately noticed the blood on the floor. I switched on the light, and there was Adam, lying on the floor with a huge knife sticking out of his back. Of course, I had to give a fake scream, just in case anyone was listening. But inside, I was so happy. I called the police, and through my fake tears, I told them what had happened to Adam. It's my husband. He's been murdered.
Okay, we have an officer on the way.
As I waited for the police to arrive, I forced myself to cry. I had to make it look convincing. When the policeman saw my tears, he told me to go sit in the lounge.
I will bring you in a cup of tea.
I'd better call Adam's parents and let them know what has happened. Now, I did feel a bit sorry for Adam's dad, but when I heard his mom crying in the background, I felt nothing. I knew that she had always disliked me. She never thought I was good enough to marry her son. That's why it didn't surprise me when the police turned up the next day to arrest me. I was prepared for it because I knew that Adam's mom would accuse me. When they took me to the cell, I wasn't worried. I I knew that Adam's dad would help me out. Sure enough, it didn't take long before he had paid my bail and the police let me go. It wasn't easy at Adam's funeral, though. I was surrounded by all his family and friends, and of course all eyes were on me. I had to keep pinching my own arm to force myself to shed tears. When they played Adam's favorite song, Happy, he nearly burst out laughing. Yes, I was definitely happy. After the funeral, we all went back to Adam's parents' house. Everyone was so nice and friendly with me. I was so happy that no one was suspicious of me. But the thing that made me the most happy was the time I went back to see all the homeless people that I used to hang out with. I made an excuse that I was there to ask them some questions, to see if they knew anything about Adam's murder. But really, I was just there to show off. I drove up in my luxury car, wearing designer clothes, and carrying an expensive handbag. I loved seeing the looks of jealousy on their faces.
Get out of here. You're not welcome.
I didn't care that they hated me. I got to drive away, and I had a huge grin spread across my face. They don't bother me. I have everything I want in life now. You're probably thinking pretty bad of me right now, but you don't know the whole story. You see, my relationship with Adam wasn't as lovey-dovey as you think. He was actually quite mean to me sometimes. He was always putting me down, especially when we went out to fancy restaurants. Of course, I hadn't been used to eating in places that expensive. I didn't know all about etiquette, etc. But instead of helping me to learn stuff, he just made fun of my mistakes. How to get away with murdering a millionaire 101. Or so I thought. What are you doing here?
What? No, honey. Thank God you're alive.
Yeah, of course.
Come off it, Selena. Who are you trying to kid? I knew all along that you were plotting to kill me.
I started to panic. I could feel the fear rising up inside of me. What? No, I mean...
Don't even bother. You'll be wasting your breath. I overheard you talking to your hitman. Once I found out who he was, I just offered to pay him more money than you were paying him. He agreed to pretend to kill me, but instead, he used a fake body and fake blood.
What? How could you do such a thing?
Because I wanted to catch you red-handed.
I hate you.
Do you really think that I care? My mom was right about you. You're just a money-grabbing gold digger.
Oh, you're such a mommy's boy, aren't you? Suddenly, I heard the sound of cars pulling into our driveway. I ran downstairs. I knew that I had to get away, but Adam was right behind me.
Don't think you're getting away with this, because you're not.
He opened the front door, and the house was immediately filled with policemen.
Hands up! You're under arrest.
I was surrounded. My only chance of escape was through the back kitchen, but Adam was blocking the way. I decided to take my chance. I lunged at Adam and started punching him. I really went crazy. I put my hands around his throat and squeezed and squeezed. His face turned bright red and his eyes started bulging. Suddenly, I felt someone grab me from behind and I fell to the floor. 2 seconds later, handcuffs were being put on my wrists.
That's enough from you, young lady. You're coming with us.
I could hear Adam gasping for breath.
Keep her away from me. She's crazy.
Crazy for ever marrying you, yeah!
I can't believe I ever had any feelings for you. I thought you were such a nice girl, but you are evil.
Ah! I tried to lunge at Adam again. I was so angry at that moment. But the police held me back. Adam just stood there laughing at me.
I hope you rot in jail.
The policeman took me to the station and locked me up in the cell. I was so angry. I started kicking the cell door and the walls. I picked up the lamp beside the bed and threw it at the wall, smashing it into 100 pieces. How could it all have gone so wrong? I thought I had the perfect plan. If it wasn't for that stupid, greedy human, everything would have turned out as I wanted it to. I'm not exactly sure how long they kept me in the cell awaiting my court case, but eventually the day arrived for me to face the judge. The policeman came to my cell and opened the door.
Come with us and make sure you behave yourself in court, okay?
I nodded. I had soon learned that it was useless fighting against the police. It didn't get me anywhere. The minute I walked into the courtroom, everyone stopped talking and stared right at me. I could feel their eyes following me as I walked across the room and took my place beside the judge.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. The prosecution began to describe the events leading up to Adam's fake murder. As I listened to them, I could see Adam's mom out of the corner of my eye. She was sitting there with a smug look on her face. I thought I was going to explode with rage. I hated all of them. But I managed to keep my anger in check. The last thing I needed was to lose it in the courtroom. The judge would not be happy with me at all. Eventually, it came time for the judge to give my sentence.
Stand up.
I stood up and faced the judge.
We find you guilty of the attempted murder of Adam.
Everyone in the courtroom started cheering. All of Adam's friends and family were there. All the people that told me I was family to them were now celebrating my downfall.
You are sentenced to 10 years in prison.
No!
Take her away.
So, there I was, living in a filthy, dirty prison. No one ever came to visit me. They basically left me to rot there. How did it all go wrong? So, do you think I just accepted my fate? Well, you'd be wrong. I decided that I was going to escape from the prison. I worked out a plan. I knew that there was a vulnerable time when the guards changed shifts. There was about a 2-minute window between one guard leaving and the other one arriving. I watched the guards every night for about a week. Finally, I was ready to take my chance. Just before the guards finished, I called out to them. Hey, I need to go to the bathroom.
Hold on, you will have to wait.
Oh, I can't. Please let me out now. The guard hesitated for a second, but then came and opened my door.
Okay, but be quick and make sure you come straight back here.
Of course. I ran off down to the bathroom, but instead of going inside, I waited and watched the guard. When the clock said 5 p.m., the guard put on his jacket and left the room. As soon as he was out of sight, I ran outside. I knew I had less than 2 minutes before the new guard arrived. I just kept on running and running without looking behind me. Eventually, I stopped. I did it! I couldn't believe that my plan had worked. Finally, I was free. Just to be outside in the fresh air felt so good. After that, I lay low for a while. I didn't want to rush into anything and risk getting caught. Once I felt that enough time had gone by, I started to stalk Adam. I watched as he left the house and waited until he came back again. Every day he had the same routine. I knew exactly when he would be home and when the coast would be clear. I waited until I was sure that he was home alone, and I broke into the house. I crept through the hallway towards the study where I knew Adam would be working away on his computer. He had no idea that I was creeping up behind him. By the time he realized I was there, I had his hands tied behind his back and a gag in his mouth. He looked at me in shock. What? Aren't you happy to see me? I'm going to finish you off properly. I should have done the job myself in the first place. He looked terrified. I raised the knife I had brought with me into the air, and I was about to plunge it into his heart when suddenly the door burst open and Adam's parents came running in.
Stop! Leave him alone!
What are you doing here?
We've been watching you through the CCTV cameras. We knew you were going to try and attack Adam. Put the knife down. I've already called the police. They'll be here any second.
I was so angry. I lifted the knife higher, but Adam's dad lunged at me and knocked the knife out of my hands.
Quick, tie her up.
Adam's mom came and tied my hands up with a rope.
Now, untie Adam.
Adam stood in front of me, a huge grin on his face. I knew he thought that he had beaten me, but little did he know. I think it's time we cut the act. Shall we? Adam's dad smiled at me. He lunged at Adam and his mom and tied them both up. Then he came and untied me. I stood up and gave him a big kiss. Adam and his mom looked at us in shock.
What's going on?
Oh, yeah. I guess there's something you should know. You see, me and your dad have been secretly dating the whole time. When I escaped prison, I called him and asked him for help. We came up with a plan to kill the two of you and take all the money. We are going to live an amazing life together, aren't we, darling?
Dad, is this true?
Yes, it's true. I love Selena.
But how could you do this to Mom?
I can't help who I fall in love with.
Well, let's see what the police have to say when they get here.
Oh, they won't be coming.
What do you mean?
I didn't really call them. I just pretended to speak to them.
Come on, let's not waste any more time. I picked up the can of gasoline that I had brought and poured it onto the carpet. I lit the match and threw it onto the floor. Instantly, the carpet started burning. I went to the door. Adam's dad was right behind me. Oh, you're not coming with me.
Huh?
I pushed him and he fell back onto the floor. You seriously think I want to spend the rest of my life with you, old man? Please. I shut the door and locked it behind me. I jumped into Adam's dad's Ferrari and looked to see if the bag he was supposed to bring was on the back seat. Sure enough, there it was. I opened it up. It was full of $100 bills. $100 million to be precise. Now, all I had to do was reach the border and cross to Canada. Who knew I would become an expert at getting away with murdering not just one millionaire, but 3?
As soon as I walked through the front door, the smell of freshly roasted chicken hit my nose and made my stomach rumble.
Your dinner is on the table. Come and get it whilst it's hot.
Thank you, Grandma. You always make the most delicious food.
You are welcome, my darling. I love to see you eating well.
I started tucking into my dinner. I felt so lucky to be living with my grandma. She took such good care of me and always made sure I had everything I needed.
Shall we watch a movie together after dinner, darling?
I had been hoping to go out and meet my friends, but I knew that my grandma liked me to stay at home with her. Sure, that sounds like a great idea. Suddenly, there was a loud knocking at the door.
Well, I wonder who that can be at this time of night.
My grandma went to see who was at the door. But as soon as she opened it, 4 men wearing black masks came bursting through. They took one look at me and pounced on me. Leave me alone! Who are you? I tried to break away from them, but they were too strong. My grandma started screaming at them, but they just ignored her. The next thing I knew, someone had put a blindfold over my eyes, and I was being bundled into the back of a car. Let me go! Let me go!
Be quiet and you won't get hurt.
I started to panic when I heard the man say that. What are they gonna do to me? Where are they taking me? They drove a short distance and then the car stopped. I heard the door open and felt hands pulling me out of the car. I stumbled along. It was difficult to walk when I couldn't see a thing. A few seconds later, they took my blindfold off. I blinked a couple of times from the glare of the light. When I managed to focus, I could see that I was in a small room, like a prison cell. I was surrounded by men, dressed in black and wearing full black face masks. I had no idea who they were or what they wanted with me. Look, I don't know who you're looking for, but it's definitely not me. I don't have any money. I'm not worth anything. Please, just let me go and I won't tell anyone about what happened. But they didn't let me go. They didn't even say a word to me. They just left the room and locked the door behind them. That night, as I lay on the bed in the cell, I sobbed and sobbed. My tears felt strangely heavy as they rolled down my cheeks. Well, it's hardly surprising, is it, after what I had just been through? And little did I know that what was coming next was going to be even more traumatic. By now, you're probably thinking, what more could possibly happen to this girl? Well, wait until you see what happens at the end of this video. You will not believe your eyes. When I woke up the next morning, my eyes were heavy and swollen from crying all night. I could hardly see anything through my swollen eyelids. I began to think about the events of the night before. I just couldn't think of any reason why they would want to kidnap me. I mean, I was just some ordinary kid. There was definitely nothing special about me. If my grandma had been wealthy or even famous, then it might have been a ransom they were after. But we didn't have any money, and my grandma wasn't famous. There was just nothing that I could think of that would explain the kidnapping. Maybe it's a case of mistaken identity. Yes, that must be what it is. They're probably just gonna come along and set me free once they realize their mistake. But then I noticed something. Something bright and shiny. I haven't been able to see it last night in the pitch black, but this morning, with the daylight streaming through the tiny window of my cell, I could see hundreds of tiny gold droplets on the floor of the cell. I picked one up and inspected it. Oh my god, it's like a little gold teardrop. I was so shocked. I had no idea where they had come from. But before I had any more time to think about it, the cell door opened and the man from the night before came in.
Good work. We knew you were the right one.
What do you mean? What are they talking about? I demand to know what's going on. But instead of giving me an explanation, they just ignored my questions and let me out of the cell and into another room.
Now, get to work. Start crying.
I looked at the men in confusion. I don't understand. What do you want from me?
Just do as we tell you. Start crying now.
But why?
It doesn't matter why. Start crying now, or we will give you something to cry about.
I began to feel really afraid when the man said that. I had no doubt in my mind that he meant every word, so I closed my eyes and began to think about my grandma and how much I missed her. It wasn't long before the tears started rolling down my cheeks. But something felt strange, and then I heard the sound of something hard dropping on the floor. I opened my eyes in confusion. What I saw shocked me to the core. Where my tears had fallen onto my skin and onto the ground was now covered in tiny gold teardrops. I couldn't believe it. Have I made those golden teardrops? The men started cheering and clapping loudly.
Good job, well done. We knew you could do it.
They started gathering up all of the gold drops and putting them into a sack.
Take her back to her cell. She has done enough work for today.
One of the men led me back to my cell.
Wait here and I'll bring you something to eat.
Please, just tell me what's going on. How can I produce those golden teardrops? But the man didn't give me any answer. He just went out of the cell, locking the door behind him. When he returned, he opened the door and slid a plate inside. He didn't even bother to come inside. As I ate my meal in silence, I thought about what had just happened. It's crazy. How can this be happening to me? The following morning, the same thing happened, and the day after, and the day after that. It was the same routine each day. I would wake up, go to the bathroom, eat, and then the men would take me to the other room and tell me to cry. After a while, it became difficult to make myself cry. I was worried that the men would harm me, but luckily they came up with a better solution. One day, when they could see that there was no way that I was going to be able to produce any tears, they brought in a TV and put on a sad movie. It wasn't long before the tears started flowing again. At the end of each day, I was absolutely exhausted. I suppose that producing the gold tears must have had a draining effect on my body. Each night, as soon as my head hit the pillow, I went sound to sleep. I started to think back to my childhood, wondering if I could remember any time when I might have produced some gold tears. But I couldn't think of a single time when I had ever cried. I had never really thought about it before. I guess I was just used to having a happy life. I mean, why would anyone want to be miserable? I know that my grandma always made sure that I was happy. She used to tell me that it wasn't good to be sad, that we should always be happy. I remember one time my friends had told me about this really good movie. They suggested that I watch it with my grandma.
You will love it. It's a real tearjerker.
But when I told my grandma about it, she was adamant that I wasn't allowed to watch it.
I've told you before, nothing good comes from being sad. Why would you want to watch a sad movie? No, I know of a really nice movie. We can watch that instead.
And another time, I was at school when my sports teacher announced that the school was starting a girls' soccer team.
We will be starting practice next week. Anyone can join. You don't need to have had any experience playing before.
I was so excited. I'd always wanted to play soccer. Please, miss, can I join the team?
Of course you can, but you will need to get a consent form signed by a parent or guardian before you are allowed to join.
I took the form home and showed it to my grandma. Can you sign this, please, Grandma? My school needs your permission to let me join the girls' soccer team. But instead of taking the form and signing it, my grandma looked at me horrified.
What? Soccer? No. That's definitely not a good idea.
But why? I think it would be so much fun.
But you might get hurt.
Oh, don't worry, I'm a big girl.
No, darling. I really don't think it's a good idea. We don't want you getting hurt. It might upset you.
Oh, please, Grandma.
No, I'm sorry. I've made my mind up. Why don't you look for something else to join? Maybe the chess club or something like that. Yes, I think that would be a much better idea.
It didn't matter how much I pleaded with my grandma, she just wouldn't change her mind. I was upset that I wasn't allowed to play soccer, but I knew that she was just being protective of me. It was the same as the time when the school organized for us to go to a rock climbing wall. My grandma came along to watch us, but when she saw one girl get halfway up and suddenly burst into tears from the nerves, she then decided that I shouldn't try it at all. The more I thought about it, the more I wondered if I had always had the ability to cry gold tears, but I'd just never known. Suddenly, I heard shouting in a hallway outside my cell. Then the shouts turned into screams. Ah! I was petrified. What is happening? I had no idea who or what it was that was out there, but whatever it was that was causing all the commotion was probably scarier than the men who were holding me captive. And suddenly, the screams stopped, and I could hear footsteps walking towards my cell. I stepped back into the corner of my cell and held my breath. I was praying that the footsteps would keep on walking past my cell and far away, but they came to a stop. The next thing I knew, my cell door was opening, a shadow appearing in the doorway. I was so scared. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would jump right out of my chest. Then the person stepped into my cell. I was so shocked when I saw who it was. Grandma!
Come on, we've got to get you out of here.
But what about the kidnappers? Where are they?
Don't you worry about that. Come on, we don't have time to hang around. We must get out of here, now.
When we got home, Grandma didn't waste any time.
Start packing your things in your suitcase. We need to go away for a while.
But Grandma, I don't understand what's going on. What are we running away from?
Just do as I say. We don't have time to lose.
I was so confused. Nothing added up. Then a thought came into my head. Grandma, how did you know where to find me? My grandma turned and looked at me, but she didn't answer. I began to shake my head. There was definitely something strange going on, but I didn't know what it was. Could my grandma have known all along that I could shed golden teardrops? Is that why she never wanted me to watch a sad movie or get hurt in any way? And another thing, what happened to the kidnappers? How did you manage to defeat all of them and get past them to reach me? There were at least 6 of them and they were all big, burly men. She still didn't give me any answers. She just carried on packing our things into bags. But I was determined to get some answers. Too much had happened in the past few weeks for me to just go along with what my grandma was telling me to do. Grandma, I am not going anywhere unless you explain to me exactly what is going on. And the first thing that I want to know the answer to is, did you know that I could cry golden teardrops? Have you been stopping me from crying all of my life so that I wouldn't discover my ability? Grandma, I demand to know. If you want to know if my grandma gave me any kind of explanation or if I managed to find out the truth, make sure to tune into episode 2 because I guarantee you, you won't regret it.